And you store philias and phobias in time, in the future, because you're anticipating more positives, negatives, more negatives and positives, and you're excited or you're basically frightened. And anytime you do that, you're adding time to the mind and taking yourself out of present. As you've gone through your life, there's most likely been moments where you have had this kind of awe-inspiring, open-hearted feeling, like this recognition of a higher meaning and order of what's happening in your life, with tears in your eyes or goosebumps up your spine, sort of a awe, a wow, an inspirational moment, almost a speechless moment. Well, I don't know if you've ever taken the time to actually document the moments you have and when they occur and what's in your mind, what's the content of your mind at the time. The first time I noticed this, I think I was around 11, and I was listening to a piece of music, and I noticed that it brought me a tear in the eye, and I didn't pay attention to it. I just noticed that, wow. Then around 13, I had started having the same thing with another piece of music. It wasn't until much later in my life that I got this insight that this has been a guide through my life. This is an intuitive, inspirational guide that Albert Einstein said that was two of the most important things to have in life, the inspiration and the intuition to guide you. So I started to keep a record of all the moments I did, and I documented what was the content of my mind at the moment that happened. I even went back and got music from those early eras and played the music and waited for that same feeling to emerge. And when I did, I noticed that the lyrics were especially meaningful to me, or what came into my mind and the content visually was especially meaning. And I wrote them all out, and the very thing that I've dedicated my life to was revealed all the way back to 11 in my life through tears of inspiration. And I've been fascinated by these states, it might say this transcendent state of inspiration. And I'd like to share with you something that I think will be quite intriguing, something you probably have never thought about, or maybe you have, but something that I know when I share it with people, they quickly write it down. So take a peek up here. I'm going to make a statement that every human being has feelings, but I'm going to make a distinction between two types of feelings. So I want you to draw a line here across your page if you want to do it. And imagine we have an arrow going up and an arrow going down. And the arrow up is going towards what is going to be called transcendent feelings. And the one below is going to be called emotional feelings. So this is transcendent and emotional feelings. And I'll put feelings on the side here. Now, these are synthesized, and these are polarized. So let's call this one happy and sad, joy and sorrow, like and dislike, infatuation, resentment, elation, depression, attraction, repulsion. These are polarized feelings, like two poles of a magnet. Poles of a magnet. This is supposedly positive. This is supposedly negative in our mind. These things occur when we perceive that our values are being supported. These occur when our values seem to be challenged. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system inside our physiology. This activates the sympathetic. This is rest and digest oriented, fight or flight oriented. Whenever you have one or the other, you are conscious of the positives, unconscious of the negatives here, and you're conscious of the negatives and unconscious of the positives here. But what happens if all of a sudden you're seeing both sides? This is where you're conscious of the positives and conscious of the negatives simultaneously. So this is a synchronicity and synthesis of both sides, the positive and the negative. I call it synthesis and synchronicity of opposites. The feelings here are not pole, half of it. It's not where our consciousness is divided up where you see only one side. It's when you see both sides simultaneously. This shows up, and I've now had the opportunity in my Breakthrough Experience program, which I've done 1,080 times around the world, taking tens and tens of thousands of people through this. Well, the moment we actually are able to see both sides by asking quality questions that allow us to see both sides, we actually have a true gratitude. Now, this gratitude is sometimes called grace. This is different than the gratitude when things support us. If somebody comes up to us and gives us what we want and supports our value, we go, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if somebody comes over here and takes what we want or gives us what we don't want, we go, screw you, screw you, screw you kind of thing. But if all of a sudden you see both at the same time, you discover a hidden order and you rise above the paradox of opposites and see both sides and realize that's where maximum growth actually occurs. See, if somebody gives you what you want every time you want, you stay juvenilely dependent. If somebody challenges you and gives you the negative side more than the positive side, you end up becoming precociously independent. You want to avoid it. You're independent from that which is challenging. You're dependent on that which is supporting. So you end up splitting yourself into a child and an old man, you might say, or an old adult, where if you put them together, you become present. And this grace state, or gratitude, is a perfectly equilibrated mind, a synthesis and synchronicity of opposites of perception. This kind of like this gratitude is like a key that opens up the gateway of the heart, and out comes love. Now, many people think that infatuation is love, which is a dopamine rush and a serotonin high, but this love has a balanced chemistry. And the reason I know that it exists is because taking tens and tens of thousands of people through the breakthrough experience and having them do my method, the Demartini method, and taking them to this state of transcendence, they end up having gratitude and love simultaneously. Gratitude and love of the heart, you might say. You literally feel an opening right here in the chest cavity. That brings about an inspiration. And what happens the moment you get inspired, because you see the hidden order of the pairs of opposites. And this state right here brings a balance of autonomics. And the moment it brings a balance of autonomics, it brings this state that I was telling you about at the beginning, this moment of tears of gratitude and chills up the spine. And when that occurs, it's a confirmation that you're seeing things as they are, not as you subjectively bias and imagine them to be. A subjective bias means you have an opinion that's one side or the other skewed. When you see things objectively, you see both sides synchronously. You also have enthusiasm. Now, many people have infused enthusiasm with standing on chairs and doing excitements, going rah, rah, and things like that. But enthusiasm means the God within, entheos. It means a poised, present, purposeful, patient, productive, prioritized state of mind. As St. Augustine had said, it's the point of equilibrium, the point of balance. When that occurs, you have certainty. And when you have certainty, you're not wavering. See, when you have emotions, you have wavering. If I went to you and I said, you're always positive, never negative, you would go, no. You're always negative, never positive. You go, nope. But if I said, sometimes you're positive, negative, or even at the same time you can be positive, negative. You can be positive to somebody and negative to somebody else. Then your body would go, yep. You can only have certainty in a point of equilibrium. You also have presence. Because anytime you're emotional, if you imagine a positive without a negative, you create a philia. And if you imagine a negative without a positive, you create a phobia. And you store philias and phobias in time, in the future, because you're anticipating more positives, negatives, and more negatives and positives, and you're excited or you're basically frightened. And anytime you do that, you're adding time to the mind and taking yourself out of present. And anytime you put imagination, as William James says, you create memory to balance it. So you're actually creating the arrow of time in the aging process with these emotions. That's why if you have an extreme emotional state, you age, and you can see it, you can watch yourself age. But the second you have gratitude and love of the heart, inspiration of the mind, enthusiasm as the body, and certainty and presence in the state of your mind, these are the transcendentals. And these are confirming that you're seeing things as they are, not as you might say, assume they're to be. And many times people have the fantasy, when you're in a stressful situation, you start skewing and distorting your reality. When you're actually in a state of centeredness and you're present, you see things as they are. And the magnificence of how they are is far greater than any fantasies you'll build around things. So this is a sign that you're confirmed and actually authentic. This is an inauthentic state. Why? Because if you're infatuated with something or someone, you're going to want to change you relative to them, and you're going to try to live outside your own values to fit into theirs, because you're going to inject their values into your life, be juvenilely depend on them and wish you could be more with them, and sacrifice what's important to you until you eventually get resentful enough to say, I want my life back. If you're resentful to somebody, you're going to want to change them relative to you and try to get them to live in your life. And that's not possible. Both of those are futile. Striving for that which is unavailable and trying to avoid that which is unavoidable is a source of human suffering. But the second you embrace things, and there's nothing to change in you or nothing to change in them, you don't need to fix you relative to them or them fixed relative to you, and you're graced by what's there, your human will, the way you want it, and the way it is match. And this is a very fulfilling state which brings the awe, inspiration, and the autonomics back into balance. And you get confirmed with a moment of inspiration, and a tear comes out of your eyes. It's not a sorrow tear, which is this side. It's not a giggle tear, which is laughing yourself until you cry. It's a synthesis and synchronicity of those two, which is a tear of inspiration, a tear of gratitude, a tear of love, a tear of enthusiasm. It's a transcendental state, and it's a confirmation that you're seeing things as they are, not as you perceived with some sort of distorted reality. Most people live in hallucinatory states, striving to get one side, trying to avoid the other, instead of actually honoring the magnificence. Because the truth is we have both sides. We finally love people for both sides and love ourselves for both sides. We get to have the gratitude, love, inspiration, enthusiasm, certainty, and presence. These are powerful states, and they're confirmations of authenticity. And so you want to listen to those. In the breakthrough experience, when people do the Demartini method, every single column, every single question in the method, if it's answered to the completion, can give you that confirmational state. So whenever you're perceiving a reflection of somebody in yourself and you see them equally, that occurs. Anytime you're able to see both sides of an event, that occurs. It is constantly trying to help you be authentic and see things as they are, because maximum function occurs at the border of these two sides. Maximum growth and development occurs when these two sides are born together and merge together. So the second we are able to go from the, you might say, the emotional polarized feelings to the transcendental feelings, we have confirmation. We're seeing things as they are, not as we deludedly perceived. But the moment we get to this state, we automatically go on to another judgment, start emotionally judging again, have to work through our next judgment to eventually love again. Empedocles, the Greek philosopher 2,500 years ago, basically, or some period back there, he said that there was love and there was strife, and that anything that is strived is not loved yet, but those things that are loved are confirmations that you and the universe are working together. You feel like everything's on the way here, you feel like everything's in the way here. So I just want to share that little message about feelings, because you can transform emotionally polarized feelings, which are joy and sorrow, into synthesized, inspired, and loving feelings once you see both sides. You want to be loved for both sides. You want to love life for both sides. If you do, you get to have those things as confirmations. You're seeing things as they truly are, not as you just assumed they were. Thank you for joining me for this presentation today. If you found value out of the presentation, please go below and please share your comments. We certainly appreciate that feedback. And be sure to subscribe and hit the notification icons. That way I can bring more content to you and share more to help you maximize your life. I look forward to our next presentation. Thank you so much for joining.